Signs of coral life on Mars. Okay, so I'm going to be 100% honest right up front with this one. This article has gotten a lot of pushback for being clickbaity, and indeed it is if you are willing to sort of play by the assumptions in the article. But I think there are at least two other explanations for what NASA has found that might not be as exciting as coral, but do still lead us in a direction that would be more interesting than the Mars that we currently have floating in the sky, circling around the sun. However, I should describe the way that Mars is positioned. NASA finds multi billion year old coral on Mars. Subtitled NASA's Curiosity rover has snapped black and white images of a rock on the Martian surface that looks remarkably like a piece of coral from Life Science by Sasha Pare. This is the image itself. We're going to get an explanation for this rock, for this image, that is less than I would say satisfactory, but less than intriguing. But I think that there are intriguing substitutions for that explanation based in science. I'm not going to tell you that it's the Anunnaki, okay? So we're not going that direction. But NASA's Curiosity rover has sent back intriguing images of what looks like a piece of coral on Mars. The strange object is, in fact, small, light colored, wind eroded rock, which the rover found inside the red planet's Gale crater on July 24th, but it looks remarkably similar to the reef building creatures found in Earth's ocean. A black and white image taken with Curiosity's remote micro imager, a high resolution telescopic camera that is mounted on the rover and shared by NASA in a statement on August 4th, shows the approximately 1 inch wide, 2.5 centimeters, rock with its intricate branches. Curiosity has found many rocks like this one, which were formed by ancient water combined with millions of years of sandblasting by the wind, NASA representatives wrote in the statement. Now, that is certainly an explanation. That is the easiest explanation. It is perhaps the most obvious explanation. And look, it's NASA. Probably they're right, but they have been wrong about things in the past. This is a rock that is not in their hands. It is a long, long way away. Coral-shaped rocks on Mars started forming billions of years ago when the red planet still had water. Now, still had water, but are these rocks formed in the way that they are being described here? There is a question about that. According to the statement, just like water on Earth, this water was full of dissolved minerals, percolated through small cracks in Martian rocks, gradually depositing minerals, forming solid veins in the rocks. Other examples of the unusual rocks found on Mars include Paposo, a strangely shaped rock measuring 2 inches, 5 centimeters, that's about average, right, across, that Curiosity also discovered on July 24th, and a tiny flower-shaped object which the rover photographed in Gale crater in 2022. So far, Curiosity has traversed roughly 22 miles of the 96-mile wide crater. Its path is meandering and slow because it has to stop and drill into rocks, collect samples, and gather data. So, 22 miles. This is, I mean, if you're traveling at a decent speed, you can go 3 miles an hour. 20 minutes per mile. This is not very far. So to suggest that we have a good understanding of Mars through what it is that rover has done in this crater is not the case. And it might be that there are alternatives for this. Now, one thing that has been suggested is that this looks like a fulgurite. And I'm going to read to you, because I'm not the best with this sort of thing, I'm going to read to you the Wikipedia article on fulgurites. What are fulgurites? Commonly called fossilized lightning. This would suggest that we have remnants of an atmosphere and atmospheric conditions on Mars. Commonly referred to as fossilized lightning, are natural tubes, clumps, or masses of sintered vitrified or fused soil, sand, rock, organic debris, and other sediments that sometimes form when lightning discharges into the ground. When composed of silica, fulgurites are classified as a variety of the mineraloid lecatellarite, which is 1000% how you say that. When ordinary negative polarity cloud ground lightning discharges into a grounding substrate, greater than 1 million volts of potential difference may be bridged. These things would have been different on Mars depending on the atmosphere on Mars when it happened. Mars had an atmosphere. It must have had an atmosphere if it had so much water. So, what were the conditions like then? This is so while and whereas this explanation might not be particularly compelling, uh, while might not be particularly compelling, the article's explanation for these rocks is uncompelling in a direction towards whether or not there was once life on Mars. The two explanations that I'm sort of feeling around are much more compelling towards answering the question, was once there life on Mars? Electricity, so the fulgurites, and so this is a fulgurite here. This is what that kind of rock looks like. The explanation here, could this be silica or carbonates left over from a hot spring? Could this rock actually be deposited from a hot spring where these minerals would be more apt to separate after cooling than simply kind of as the atmosphere had dried, these minerals clumping together? So, did Mars have hot springs? Well, yeah, I found out that it did in an article titled "Mars May Have Had Hot Springs Millions of Years Ago" from New Scientist by Leah Crane. This is an article written just 5 years ago. Mars is full of water and may once have even been home to hot springs. The more we observe the red planet, the more we learn about its damp past and present, which could inform a human exploration in the future. We know that billions of years ago, Mars was probably warm enough to maintain liquid water on its surface. By comparing images of the strange bright areas on Mars with similar looking terrains on Earth, Dorothy Oler at the Planetary Science Institute in Arizona and her colleagues found that ancient Mars may have even had hot springs. These oval shaped areas may have been spotted inside a crater on Mars, and from their irregular shapes and bright concentric ellipses, the researchers conclude that they appear to be areas where fluid seeped up from underground. That hot fluid may have been released by the impact that created the crater, which is now similar looking to hot springs that are on Earth. Now, there are a couple of different interesting points that pop up around this explanation. Number one, what were the conditions on Mars when, if this is a hot spring formed silica or carbonate, what were the conditions on Mars when that happened? Because the conditions on Mars when that happened would dictate the actual properties of this silica or this carbonate, which could, by the way, be a variation of silica or carbonate that we do not have on Earth. One thing from okay, how should I present this? Okay, so both of these explanations are more interesting than the original article's explanation as far as life on Mars once, as whether or not life on Mars once could have been. Why? Well, because all of the explanations for how life may have originated in practice involve some source of heat. One of the so okay, one of the motivating factors for early organisms would have been heat, warmth to survive, or to get away from warmth. Also, light. One of the eye has, or some form, some formation, some variation of the eye has evolved many, many times over history just on Earth. Sensitivity to light in some fashion. So it has been an evolutionary forcing factor, have light, have heat. So the fact that Mars could have once had hot springs, could have once had something like lightning strikes, would have been a condition under which evolution would have been necessary. Uh, a forcing function for life to change may be a forcing function for life to be sustained. You have had days where you were not particularly motivated. But by God, when that motivation for food kicks in, you get up and you go to Taco Bell, don't you? Right? Something like that. It might be that in the early stages of life, in the early stages of organisms, one of the things that keeps them alive and or reproducing would be an external motivation, getting to light, getting to heat, getting away from light, getting away from heat. Otherwise, the sort of um, apathetic nature of nature could stop evolution from happening in the first place. Um, also, there is a school of thought that on Earth, where did life originate? Where did it start? Where did the first um, molecule that you could describe as living come from? And why don't we see it anymore? Why don't we see life popping up all over the place? If this is such a common occurrence on a planet where this type of thing is possible, they think now that it might be happening, and where it happens, well, it's at those hot springs at the bottom of the ocean. So, if there were hot springs on the ocean, on Mars, hot springs on Mars, it could be that that would be where something like life would start. Going back to where I stopped talking just a couple of minutes ago, there is an idea in some science fiction, and I'm not the guy to ask about it. I just know kind of that this thought process exists. What if life, instead of being carbon based, were silica based? There are people who think that silica based life is possible. So to have silica deposits on Mars would be another sign that perhaps some type of life uh, could have been kicking around on Mars at one point in time. Now, the fact that we haven't found a fossil, the fact that we haven't found a carcass, the fact that we haven't found X, Y, or Z, I don't think is particularly perturbing. We have we have we have looked around on Mars in close detail in a very, very small part of Mars. So I still have hope that there was at one point more life in our sort of solar system, even, let alone the greater expanse of space. But I don't think that we will get to those discoveries without discoveries like this. Oftentimes, what happens is smaller discoveries like this lead to a greater understanding of one thing or another, and those understandings lead us to more intriguing places to explore. Like the second article presented suggests, if there were in fact once hot springs on Mars, that would be a very interesting place to go looking around and see what you could kick up. Um, So, while the original title of the article may have been misleading, may have been clickbait ish, I do think that there is some intriguing stuff going on with the actual information. So, it's a shame that they found it necessary to clickbait people in. Anyway, guys, that is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate this sort of thing, archaeology, sort of science based, sort of this is one of the things I cover on the channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.